The Branding Your Business podcast is for small business owners looking to build a customer favorite brand and a value-driven business. From solo shows covering marketing tactics to experts sharing their brand stories, each episode delivers actionable insights for entrepreneurs who want to impact the world. We're sharing how strategic moves and authentic connections can build a profitable business minus the burnout. Tune into the Branding Your Business podcast with me, Praise Santos McKenna of Come Plum, to design a brand your audience adores while building a life you love. Welcome back to the Branding Your Business podcast. Again, my name is Praise Santos McKenna, and today we have a special kind of podcast episode for you where we're doing a live coaching call with my friend Sarah, who I am such a fangirl of. Incredible, amazing, and wait till you hear what she does because you all are going to get obsessed and also go to your home and give it a full-on makeover. So we'll get into that a little bit more. But today, what we'll be talking about is a bit of storytelling and how do we bring our brands into that form of storytelling. But I'll be able to just live coach my friend Sarah through a lot of this because first, I actually think a lot of the answers lie within her. And a lot of coaching is really walking with people and helping people unearth the best that's in them. But secondly, once we get kind of those questions out and we'll make sure that kind of Sarah comes upon her own conclusions, I also have a few ideas of what she could do too if we don't touch on those things. So that will be a bit about our call today. But instead of me just bragging over and over of how cool Sarah is, I want to introduce you to Sarah, who is the CEO and founder of Ready, Set, Organize, which is based out of San Diego, California. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself? Like, even what does your days look like? What's it like leading your team? And then tell us a little bit about how Ready, Set, Organize came to be, because it's kind of a post-pandemic baby too. And I feel like it's serving the needs of us all post-2020. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about this business that you spearhead so wonderfully?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, by the way. So my name is Sarah Dunn, and I started Ready, Set, Organize actually like in 2019. I mean, I didn't officially start get the business name and all that, but I got into organizing around then. I've always been an organized person myself. I loved decluttering my own room when I was a kid. I loved rearranging the furniture every few months. I just liked altering spaces to make them feel fresh and clean and zen. And so in 2019, I was working in events in San Francisco, and I always found myself during the events, once everything was going smoothly, I would go downstairs to our storage room and organize all of our supplies. And I would spend hours in there. And I just realized this is what I actually like to do. Forget the events. I just want to organize spaces. And so I started talking to people at the yoga studio where I went, telling them I just kind of want to get into this. And somebody mentioned to me that they were going to be moving and they needed help decluttering all their stuff before the move. So I helped her for free. And then fast forward a year later, she referred me to a friend of hers. So I worked with that lady, and it just sort of slowly started to snowball. I mean, not even snowball. That's way too fast for how it went. I just worked with one person, then I worked with this lady a year later, helped my friends a little bit. But by the time 2020 rolled around, I feel like everybody was on this Marie Kondo hype of purging their space because everybody was using their homes as a multi-purpose space. It wasn't just a place to come home to after work. They had to make a space for work, set up a Zoom station, all this stuff. And people were feeling overwhelmed by the amount of things in their home. So like everybody else, I went through all my own stuff, decluttered everything, and I started making videos about it on Instagram. And my friends were like, "You're ridiculous, but this is fun." And thought oh, I could start a business doing this, but it was 2020 and nobody wanted you inside their house. So I decided to press pause on that for a little bit, continued working in events, got a virtual events job at Facebook for a year, and it was a year contract. And when the year came to an end, I was at that point living in San Diego with my now husband. Facebook was like, "Hey, we would love for you to stay. We'll give you a 3% raise." And I was like, I just can't do it. It wasn't enough to keep me there. I didn't love the job. It was very easy. I was way overpaid for what I was doing, but it didn't. I was like, I'm ready for something that's going to be more fulfilling. Even if it's way harder and way more work, I'd rather feel good about what I'm doing. People would be like, "Oh, cool, you work at Facebook." And I'm like, mean, it might be cool for you. It's not really like, it didn't excite me. So yeah. And now I'm just like, when people tell me or ask what I do, I'm so excited about it. It's this baby that I've now been growing since 2021. It started as just me, and I made a post about this, about how like it was just me to start. I made such little money my first year, and I couldn't even imagine like getting to year one. And so I would just break it down and be like, just take the next month, like see where you go next month. And the next month would roll around and I'd be like, okay, now I have a few more clients. Like, how about month 3? Okay, you can make it to 6 months. And when I made it to 6 months, I was like, I can make it to a year and reevaluate. Like, let's see where we're at a year. But by a year, I had 3 people working for me, and we were busy. Like, we were booked out 6 weeks, 8 weeks in advance. Like, at that point, I couldn't really walk away from it. So I just like, again, took it in little bite size. Okay, let's do, a couple more months. Let's see what happens if you make it to year 2. By year 2, I'm like, okay, I'm cruising. Like, things are good. I mean, I'm not like balling by any means, but it was like, I think, let's see, by year 2, I had probably 5 people working for me. So now we're about 3.5 years in. I have a team of 10, and we've grown quite a bit. We're on track to do like $500,000 in sales this year, which is insane. For those that are listening, people want to know, like, well, what do you walk away with? I mean, I'll probably make like $150,000 this year. It's not like I'm doing better than I was doing when I worked at Facebook, but again, it's taken me 3 years to get here. So, and we have a lot of expenses. The main thing being my employees and paying people like a livable wage. So yeah, anyway, that's a little bit about me and the business and where we're at. It's been such a journey, and there's highs and lows of owning your own business. I know you know that because you've been in it for 10 years, but it's worth it.
So many gems. I had to mute myself because I don't know if you do this too, Sarah. I'm always just like, yeah, yeah. Because there's so many parts of your story that I just want to highlight. And just what I am so glad that these people are my people, because I love when business owners follow their gut and they know when something feels right and when something feels off. And when you're going also against the grain, because you know what, like a cush tech job feels right to many people. But you knew that it wasn't for you, and you could also evaluate in yourself of, when are the times that really made me come to life? Like, we are grateful for all your past jobs. I just watched a reel of all your other great jobs that you had, and they were pretty amazing. There's pictures of you in a golf cart and also babysitting. Yeah. Like, we have a very well-rounded woman on the podcast today. But you knew that there were times that really made you come alive, and it was organizing. And I am just so grateful that you've been created in this way, and that you found 10 other people on your team who are just lit up when it comes to clean, organized, well-labeled spaces. And this is such an encouragement for those who are listening too, who are also, maybe they're just starting their business, or they're maybe kind of in the mix of the business and still deciding whether or not to continue, of just trusting your gut. When is the time that you feel most alive? And even then, maybe you might not have a 5-year or 10-year plan. Keep doing that thing that makes you come alive, and then just do the next right thing. And that you were just telling yourself, okay, we're just going to make it to the next milestone. What's the next month? What's the next 6 months? What's the next year? And I am of the firm belief that sometimes we can't even handle what our business will look like in 5 years too. So maybe it's best that we don't know and just focus on the next right thing. So thank you for all the, for our audience, for myself, for sharing your story in that way, because that's such an encouragement just to hear stories like that. Which I guess my question for you is, did you ever imagine you'd end up here in 2024?
No, I mean, I really couldn't. And again, even though I'm not exactly where I want to be yet, just from like a financial perspective, to be like, wow, like this year we'll have brought in $500,000 a year. Like, I would have never imagined that. Like, the first year was like $30,000, so it's, so that is like so wild to me. And it just shows how many people need organizing and how much work there is out there. And like, it's not even like we have the lion's share of, I mean, we're definitely up there in San Diego in terms of teams, like in home organizing. We're probably in the top 2, but I mean, there's still more business to be had. There's still more people to be helped. Yeah, I could not have imagined being here. I never thought I was going to hire people, honestly. So that's been super cool. And, we moved down here in 2021 and my team is now like they're like my closest people that I have down here. I didn't have a community here. And now I really can't imagine my life without a lot of these, like all the girls that work for me. So yeah, it's cool. It's really cool.
Again, it's not just about building a business, which you're doing and have done, but now you've built a life and a community, which are the more non-tangible things, but such a benefit of all these lives you've impacted because you followed your gut of, hey, I want to do this thing and I can help these people, right? The clients you serve. And now you're also helping these team members live a more colorful life too. So that is something really wonderful. And I feel like you are thriving as you're leading. And I feel like, one, you're actually telling a really great story of your team members. I love that you have a whole highlight on your Instagram, just like, here are the people on our team. And if you read the comments, there are such fans of specific people on your team, right? Because your clients are like, we loved her organizing. That was the best.
Yeah.
And I just want to applaud you. I feel like you're doing so good in storytelling in that sense. But when you reached out to us to apply to be coached on the podcast, you're like, Praise, we are working with so many people in transition, which is often what happens when you feel like not only are you in transition, whether you're going through a divorce or maybe there's a death or a child is going to college, but then suddenly you look at the place that you call home and you feel like your life is a mess too. And it seems like that's often these triggers about when people find you. Is that right? Do you often see that pattern?
100%. Yeah. We're actually working with a guy tomorrow and he's probably around our age. I don't know how old you are, but I assume you're close to my age. But yeah, we're working with a guy tomorrow, for example, and he, initially just reached out saying, oh, I really need to get my apartment in order. And then we kind of dug deeper and he's like, look, I've been a pharmacist for, I don't know, 8 years. I have these golden handcuffs. I make a lot of money doing it. My friends are always jealous of like how much money I make for how little I work and or how like low stress his job is, I guess, and all these things. And then he's like, but I'm not really happy. And then on top of that, his mom just got sick this year. So he's been commuting a lot to Orange County to help her. And I think it's giving him more perspective on his life. And so he started asking me how I got into this business. And I told him and I shared the video I made with him last week about having worked in events and all this stuff. And he's like, it's super inspiring. Like I think I want to like make a shift. And sometimes what we need is like just making a shift in our environment to then like make larger shifts in our life, I guess. So like we're going to go to his house tomorrow and then he's gonna be like, great. Okay. Now I can like breathe and I can make decisions about, do I want to change careers? Do I want to move and be closer to my mom? Like, what is it that is next in life? And so, yeah, I mean, I would say almost every one of our clients is going through some transition. And I feel like that's where like the juice is. That's like, I don't know. That's the part I want to share with people more because before and afters, you can look those up, online. We know what a pretty pantry looks like. We know what a color-coded closet looks like and how nice it is, but it doesn't, I don't know. There's no substance there.
Yeah. And that is something that there's a time and place, and you already have done such a good job. Again, check out Ready, Set, Organize on Instagram if you want the most satisfying before and afters. And there's this real gift. Oftentimes with service providers, there's the surface level service you provide, but what you're actually providing is exactly what you said. And it's going to help clear up mental space for this gentleman to have more clarity to make life decisions. That is huge. That is something you took from like a tangible thing to this like non-tangible gift. And I guess my question for you, were you seeing this trend when you first started, or was it something that you started to see later on as you worked with more people?
Yeah, I think I started to see it later. I mean, like my third client, probably like, yeah, my third or fourth client was like going through marriage troubles. And like, I got to know this woman really well over the course of a number of days because I was just me when I was working with her. So the project was moving slower than they do now. So I worked with her probably 10 or 12 days in a row. And she opened up about like these issues with like her husband. And I think I went home to my husband and I was like, dang, I think she's like paying for organizing instead of paying for therapy, like marriage counseling. Like she should probably just pay for the marriage counseling. But sometimes it's both. Sometimes you need both. Again, you need like the clear space to be like, okay. And I do know they're still together, and I think they've worked through all their issues, which is really cool. But she kind of I think she needed to fix everything else around her before she could be like, okay, what's really the problem?
Yeah.
And that's how I operate. Like, I have like a really big assignment. I have to clean the house first. Like, I can't sit down to focus on it until I like know everything's like good and okay. It's like, it's the reason why we meditate. We clear our head before we can make the important decisions. If you've got too much going on, then it's hard to know what's right.
Yes. Which I want to recognize, one, you have a pantry full of stories then of these transformations of, again, like the surface transformation and kind of this internal personal transformation that's also happening almost at the same time with your clients too. What challenges are you facing when you think to yourself, I want to tell more stories like this? What are the challenges that come up?
I think I'm nervous to like ask the client if I can share their story. I don't want to feel like I'm exposing them. And like, I mean, even with the before and afters, it's not like people know whose closet that is unless it's their best friend and they're really familiar with their house or something. But I don't think that happens really. So I think it's like figuring out a way to share their story without just putting them on blast for the world.
Totally. Which
Because it's like,
you are,
it's not my story to share, I guess.
because you care about your clients, right? You want to respect their privacy and respect their their right to their story. That makes a lot of sense. Are there other challenges that come up besides that respect of privacy and respect of sharing their story?
I guess just like figuring out how to tell the story. What is the best way to share it?
100%.
Yeah. I don't know, writing about it, doing reels, like, I don't know, doing blog posts. Like, I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about it. For some reason, like writing about it feels like it might be the easiest way to go because I'm not showcasing them. I can change their name. People relate to stories. I guess it doesn't matter if it's written or in a movie or whatever, but yeah. So it's just figuring out how to share it.
Yes. Which how is also one of those things, especially in 2024, the attention spans of our audience these days, like how we ingest stories is so much different than I ingested stories in 2020 even, like even 4 years ago. And so it's ever evolving. So we'll touch on that in a little bit. But I guess my question for you is, has your story ever been shared by someone else? And how did you feel? How did they approach you in getting permission to share your story? How did you feel when it was shared? Just putting yourself in your client's shoes.
Yeah. I don't feel like somebody else has shared my story. With the exception of, I mean, yeah, and I really haven't had somebody else do it. I've been on podcasts before, so I can talk about it myself.
I can give a few tips and tricks that we do both as our background as photographers and as storytellers with some of our branding clients too. And I will kind of run through the mental game with you, like, oh, would this sit well with your people too? First is for us, we have in our contract, because our work is so visual, we just ask permission up front. Hey, are we allowed to share your stories, and can we use it for our marketing purposes too? So it's there kind of in the fine print. No one really questions it because they almost expect it with us too. We've had a couple of clients though who are more private, and they'll tell us, but I would say there is maybe 5 of those in the 10 years I've been doing business. So most people have been pretty open to it. So that's kind of one step. A second thing is that I have to acknowledge that most people actually don't read the fine print though. And so oftentimes when we're about to share their story, even if we did an interview with them, or even if I ask them to send a testimonial, oftentimes I'll give them the first look at it and just giving them the space to be like, hey, how does this look? Are you okay if I share it? Especially when some stories are a little more sensitive and it seems like the crux of a lot of your clients. Transitions are sensitive and they're so raw. And so oftentimes I'll just be in a text thread with our clients and just be like, hey, I made this video. Like, what do you think? How do you feel about sharing it? Most of the time people say yes, but oftentimes we also will talk to people of like, do you also want us to wait a little bit? Maybe wait till it's less raw, because perhaps that client who's a pharmacist who might be thinking of career switch, maybe once he made the career switch, he would be way more open to share that story too versus right at the beginning. So with those two things, having it in your contract and then also giving your client, even though they've given you permission, giving them kind of the first, almost like they're the first editor to see it. How do you
Yeah.
think that would sit with your people that you serve?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. We do ask if we can take before and after photos and use those, and most people agree to it. And of course, we've had a handful of people who don't want them shared. And then we do make some note about trying to keep their privacy in mind. So we're not saying like, this is Karen's pantry from Coronado, California, like whatever. We just keep it, without like identifying information. So I'm sure there's a way to do that in like the storytelling that I want to share without, letting people know who it is too. Uh, so yeah, I think that would sit
Which
great.
I think you've actually already done a bit on your blog, like switch out names.
Uh-huh.
How did that land with your client where you switch out a name about like them and their 13-year-old daughter? Did they feel good about that storytelling about the 13-year-old daughter's room switch? Which, by the way, that was very good content because also being a teenager, what a transition.
Yeah. I didn't run it by them. That's when I didn't run by a client. So I don't know. I guess I can't say for sure.
I
I'm
feel
not
like
sure if
it's
they,
anonymous enough.
yeah, it's anonymous enough.
Also, Sarah, I trust your gut, and you can feel whether or not it even feels weird to ask your clients for that permission, or it feels weird to ask them to be like the first editor to look at it. So that could just be like some experimentation, since that is your concern too. And I actually really love your preface for it too, because it seems like you're a really relational person for people to open up to you even in that way, which it seems like you're part organizer and part therapist slash best friend when you come into these things. And so that client trust is huge.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way. Like, yeah, in that it's much more than just organizing or much more than photography. You do have to be kind of a therapist. I think the same thing about realtors now that I've just gone through a home buying and home search process. It's like, and same thing about like financial planners. The market crashes and they're getting calls saying like, oh my God, what do I do? And it's like, well, the markets go up, they would go down. Yeah. So there's certain clients for sure that I would feel more comfortable sharing because I'm like, because we've developed a closer relationship, or I know they're just more of an open person, or they're more willing to share, or they want to support us and our team.
Yeah. I feel like we're all journalists in social media age these days, right? We're all now storytellers, even of our own stories and the stories of people we work with. And I feel like it's a muscle we get more comfortable with, but it's a muscle from the outside, Sarah. I am so sure that you are already so strong at, but I feel like you'll know whether or not it feels too intrusive or not intrusive. And it's about experimenting a little more. Another reminder, I was just listening to another podcast about community in general and what community means, and not just building an online community, but with the community it sounds like you created between you and your team members, where it feels like there's a lot of trust and togetherness and a sense of belonging. And it's also about us acknowledging that base sense of what everybody needs. And it's very apparent and needed in the work you do, along with realtors and financial planners. I 100% agree with those avenues as well. And I'm also just curious about how you feel talking about those topics too. And how would you feel talking about a sense of home, or what other shared values your folks have, people in transition? Have you seen yourself as a thought leader in that? And two, how could you see yourself more as a thought leader in those spaces of these non-tangible aspects that your clients are going through?
Yeah, I mean, that is the thing I get the most excited about in this business. I mean, the pharmacist that we're going to work with tomorrow, I sat on the ground like in my office the other day and just talked to him on the phone and like got off the phone being like, that was such a good phone call. And it's not because he's going to book our services. It's because he wants something more. Like, I think I should go back and become a therapist because there's such a connection to our stuff. And I want to help people through those transitions. It's like, it's being in service in like two different ways. It's the physical stuff, but then the emotional stuff too. And right now we do our best with like being able to provide untrained therapy. So I think I would feel great talking about those things, because that's what interests me the most about this field. I think is not just making things look aesthetic and beautiful. It's the deeper. I mean, truthfully, like it's the same thing. The same way I feel about conversations is like I don't love small talk. Like I would much rather go up to a stranger and be like, "What really lights you up?" Like or what is it that your mom taught you that you like carry with you through life? Like, don't tell me about like what you did yesterday or where you're headed or whatever. So I think, yeah, it's really just like the fear of starting and experimentation. I think of like I got to figure out how to do it. What medium do I use? We're in such a video aged like space right now, and how do I create videos without exposing them? Yeah, I know. I feel like I'm all over the place.
I feel like you're in exactly the right place because I hear that too, and that you are not just delivering a beautiful closet, which side note, I am obsessed and I need to buy these sheet organizers now that I've watched a number of your videos. Where have those been all my life? That's again, this thing that you're delivering, right? That's like deliverable in your contract, but you're really delivering an emotion and a feeling because you were doing it from yourself from the early days of organizing your event space, stockroom downstairs. You had that feeling after two. And that's actually kind of the work you're in. And now we're like, okay, if we actually know that this is what people are getting in addition to our deliverables, how can we tell that story online is it through a video? Is it through a blog post? How do we keep them anonymous too? And how do we keep speaking to these values? And that is something that I am constantly working on, but hopefully getting better at is like, okay, here's this service we provide. Yes, there's like brand coaching and photography, but actually what we're providing is helping women do the thing that they're called to do, to feel resourced and inspired and confident. And those are the values that I would love social media to be speaking of. That's actually the content people's souls and beings are craving. And so let's kind of start open-ended. If you were to name the values or the feelings that you want your people to feel, whether they're working with a team member or they're stumbling on your website, what are those 3 to 5 key feelings that you're actually delivering to people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want our clients to feel trusted, that they're in good hands, because they're so many people, like so many of our clients before they become clients to us say like, oh, I'm embarrassed. Like, please don't judge me. And I'm like, dude, no judgment. Like, we've seen it all. Like, the fact that you're reaching out is great. There's so many people that need our help that are too afraid to reach out. So please don't feel like I'm going to judge you based off of the pictures you send me. It doesn't mean anything to me. I have no attachment to your space too. That's what's also so great about this. So I want them to feel that they are trusted by our team to, it's big. They're in a transition and they are trusting us with all the stuff in their house, all of their prized possessions and a lot of their non-prized possessions, since we have a lot of those. So that's one. And I want them, yeah, like, trusted is just such a big one. It's like, I want them to feel like we're on their team. And I even say this to my clients too. And I probably need to make a video about this, is like, if you're on the fence about something, hang on to it, because I don't want you to feel a regret of like letting go of something just because we're there. And with that being said, not a single client in 350 clients has told me or called me and said, I shouldn't have gotten rid of that sweater, or I shouldn't have gotten rid of the trophies or whatever. They always feel light, liberated, like they lost 10 pounds after they work with us. So I'm like, just take that, again, hang on to the thing if you're on the fence about it, because I definitely don't want to force you to get rid of anything. But know that if you let go of something, you're probably not going to regret getting rid of it. It's really going to be the opposite. So there's that. I guess that's still within like the trust of working with us. I mean, I want them to feel better when they work with us. And I think for the most part, it's hard for them not to. One of my team members said to me the other week, like, she's like, our service is so great because no matter what, we're improving their space. Like, even if they're not so wowed by the situation, which most of them are, but of course we've had a handful of clients that are like a little particular, or like maybe their husband hired us and they didn't really want it, or they feel like whatever. So, we've had a couple of clients that have, every business does, that are just a little harder to work with or a little harder to please. But regardless, we walk out of every project knowing that we've made their space better. And hopefully that kind of translates to the rest of their life too. Yeah. There's a lot of empathy. And I guess it's kind of similar to trust, but being empathetic to their situation. I remind moms a lot, because we get a lot of moms that reach out like, you have kids, you have 2 kids under 5. Like, don't expect your place to be perfect. You're looking at like images you're finding on Pinterest. Like they're like dialed into a T, and no, they did not have a toddler, like, run through here like a tornado. So just like give yourself grace, and, know that you're like also doing great, and know that you're like great at whether you're a mom or you're a lawyer or a doctor or a photographer or something else, like you are really good at your craft. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be a good organizer too. Like, that's why we're here to help. So yeah, trust and empathy. And I just want them to feel supported by us. Those are like three qualities I guess I want my clients to walk away with.
Yeah, trust, empathy, support. I also heard in there not feeling alone, like not feeling judged, not feeling rushed or pressured too. And I like that you're putting them kind of under bigger group of values. But when you go in, there's several kind of nuanced, special feelings that you're actually delivering. And side note, if you're a successful business, you're going to have a percentage of people who are just not your jam. And that's like, okay, and very normal. But these key feelings, this actually is really great storytelling content, actually speaking to these values, because even if you act as a mirror to help people see that, hey, it's organizing, but what it actually is I feel alone in the chaos of this toddler room. And we're here to help you feel less alone. Or maybe it's storytelling of Louisa felt she wasn't enough because her toddler room, when she has a 2 and 3-year-old, felt chaotic, and she felt really alone in this. And then our team came along and we're just partners with her as we helped her transform the space to help her trust her gut, help her feel less alone. And so it's this like weaving of both storytelling and our values. And sometimes it's so explicit like that, where you're really using your brand values or these words that you can use over and over in your business, like trust and empathy and support, right? We can use those over and over. So there's some consistency, and there's some where it doesn't have to be so overt. It's really more nuanced. Maybe the storytelling is a B-roll shot of you like putting your arm around one of your clients as you show them through the space. They're like, oh, the rest of your audience can see that that person is less alone too. So it's both verbal, it's nonverbal. How would you feel about invoking more of your values into your storytelling, into some of your client transformation stories too?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. It's already given me some good ideas for new videos I can make or emails to write. Yeah, like you said earlier, I mean, those are like the stories people want to hear, and they want to know with such an intimate service that we're providing, they want to know that they are in good hands, that they are trusted, that we are empathetic, that we're not judging them. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's great. I'm already inspired, honestly.
Yeah, I can see the wheels turning. Well, thankfully this is recorded. So oftentimes I'm like, hey, just like re-listen to this call, take the transcript, turn it into an email, because some of the stories you shared with me, I'm like, Sarah, we need to read that. Sarah, we need to see that on a reel, especially now that reels are like less than 10 seconds is what performs the best. So I feel like in the stories you shared with me, sister, we have like
Yeah.
6 to 10 things of content already going.
Yeah.
My question for you is, how can we as a community here at the Branding Your Business podcast find you online? And two, how can we keep you accountable and cheer you on in this next like storytelling, values infused venture of yours?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram at readysetorganize.co, and same with my website, readysetorganize.co. Um, I think, I mean, I like hearing from the community when you like something, because that's the only way we know if it's like, if we're performing well, like the video, or like comment and say like, actually, when I made the reel the other day about being an event manager and starting my business, because it was a question that so many people asked me, and I was like, I should just make a video of this so I can send it to them. Like I sent it to the pharmacist the other day. I was like, are you on Instagram? I'll just send you, because he asked, how did I get into this? But when I made that, I had like 6 comments of people saying like, I needed to hear this today. Like I'm in a transition and I need to make the leap, or, I really want to start X, Y, and Z, and this is inspiring me to do it. And so that's like one of those comments like keeps me going. I don't need 5. I just need 1 just to be like, okay, cool, we're on the right path. Because for the most part, before and after videos, which we'll still continue to post, of course, because it's our portfolio, I don't get those types of comments. I don't get, I mean, people are like, nice, pretty, awesome, but it doesn't strike a chord in the heart or the soul to be like, oh, that's going to make me take action in the same way
Yes.
that a story does.
Yeah. Which I will say, those are other things that you are already so good at delivering, is hope and inspiration. So I would add those two to like, oh, how can we speak to that too? Because your audience is already giving you feedback. We
Yeah.
like this. We like this. Okay. So we can follow you on Instagram, check out your website, and also actually people leave comments. We're in a non-commenting phase. I don't know why in like social media, but I feel like comments really do lift the spirits of the creators too, to encourage us to keep on telling these stories. So I will make sure I do that, and I'll make sure our audience does that too. Sarah, we are so excited. Thank you for vulnerably sharing this
Of
very
course.
common challenge with me and with us, because telling stories, you don't think it's part of being a business owner, but if you are in charge of your own marketing, this is one of the key things that we have to do. And again, I want to applaud you because you're already doing it well. And it's just about up leveling kind of our brand, getting clear on what our values and this feeling we want to give across to people, and speaking to those values to our audience, because humans connect to humans. Humans don't connect to a business. They connect to Sarah and her team too. And that's something you're already doing well. And we can't wait to cheer you on as you continue to do that.
Thanks so much. And so are you, honestly. It's like, it makes me, I'm asking here for feedback, but at the same time, I'm like, I've been receiving your emails for, I don't know, a year or two since I think I got introduced to you through Steph.
One.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um, and so anyway, yeah, I got introduced to you via her, but so now I get your emails, and I'm like, I know you openly and like vulnerably share with your audience, which is amazing. And all I should be doing is like at least responding and be like, hey, I see you and I hear you, and thanks for sharing. Because it means it's like that's all we need. We need a little bit of encouragement, a little reminder that we're doing something right. So
Yes.
it's
Yeah. Just a
mutual.
reminder, not just a robot behind the email, just humans.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is so good. Well, I'm glad we got connected. Again, thank you for the work you're doing, both the surface level work and the deep work of just you're making people's lives better. Trained therapists or not, you are transforming lives, Sarah. So thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks for having me.